Good morning once again and welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile we put Ghana first. It is brought to you by the kind sponsorship of Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN, everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way Insurance, Dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. Flamingo Paints, simply superior. Syntax tanks, it's strong and it's durable. Activa International Insurance, our clients are passion. And International Facilities Management Association is proudly associated with your most authoritative news analysis platform, Newsfile. So, get to meet our guest for this morning. Alfred Tuah is former Deputy Attorney General and Minister of Justice. Joins us via Zoom. Professor Kojoa P.J. Tuah is Associate Professor at the School of Law, University of Ghana. Professor Sharif Mahmoud Khalid is economic advisor to the Vice President, and Amanda Okoko Clinton is Head of Chambers, Clinton Consultancy. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for making time to join us this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Great. So let's begin this way rather, instead of the way we have advertised the program. Let's quickly look at the issue of the Accra Floods. Very briefly, before we go into the matters concerning what is happening as far as the impeachment proceedings are concerned, and also Article 71 and huge amounts, quote to quote, that have been revealed that has got many people angry at what is going on with that particular compensation for those class of workers in this country. So the floods have come again just after very small rains, and 5 deaths have been recorded. We have in excess of 3,000 people who have been affected. Odona, Sahara, Oli, we are talking about many places that have been affected. Odona, Sahara, Weja, Kaneshi, Adabraka, Adenta, Dodowa, Oyarifa, and parts of Tema. And as we understand, in 2024, flood mitigation funding cost the state 8.2 million Ghana cedis. And this was disbursed to 17 AS in Accra. Also, we had the 2024 Garrett projects, and it brought us a loan of 150 million United States dollars approved for flood resilience in Greater Accra alone. We're told that the estimated cost to solve Ghana's flood crisis requires $5 billion. I met a white man doing a World Bank project, and he asked me, sanitation in this country is synonymous to corruption, correct? I didn't know what answer to give him. Let me go to... Okay, first, let's start with you, Amanda. What do you say about these floods? They come every year and they kill us. We just watch on, we look for them we wait to die.
Mm-hmm. I think we don't necessarily have a flooding problem in Ghana. We have a planning and enforcement problem, essentially, and we need the boldness to prevent it.
Planning and enforcement problem, not flooding.
We don't have a flooding problem, you know. And in relation to what you said about the foreigner who was commenting about our sanitation, I saw this interesting take on TikTok where it literally said that I think Ghana had sanitation before parts of even the UK, etc. So how on earth did we get here? But I mean, that's besides the point. But ultimately, I mean, if we can't manage our drainage problem, we won't be able to handle our future. And like you said, if so much money is required, it really is about planning, enforcement, and the boldness to prevent that. Because if we can't do this, how are we going to build the future that we want, essentially? And there is a lot of funding. Like you also mentioned, I think you mentioned the 2024 GARED project loan for drainage improvement, solid waste management, and urban resilience. And that was a $150 million loan. And yet, year after year, it's always the same sort of areas that are affected and the same sort of issues. And yet, there's more flooding in different parts of the world, but you don't see lives being lost. So as our wonderful government takes on the mandate of corruption and everything else, I really think showing leadership is also about planning and enforcement in this regard.
But what do you think? What does it tell you of our leadership that your citizens are dying with the onset of the rain without fail, and you can't solve that small problem?
It's not a disaster problem, it's a design problem or a failure to design a system, basically. And so if we have to lend from other countries in terms of how they manage to overcome this within Africa, etc., then we should. But it is a national embarrassment, I think, that lives are being lost, that just a bit of rain, you know, and sometimes the rain is a bit more, but it's sanitation, it's waste, it's drainage. And once we tackle this, maybe we can even conquer the world.
Interesting. Amanda, thank you very much. But, Prof, it does appear she has really diagnosed the problem in a way that many of us have not thought about before.
Okay.
That it is not a flooding problem.
Not at all.
It is not. It is a planning and enforcement of the very beautiful regulations and laws that we have. I was in court just this week. Guess one of the businesses I was doing in the courtroom. Remember the flood and fire disaster?
Yeah.
Where hundreds were burnt and died in the floods, and they were just picked up and dumped into the buckets of trucks. Those who suffered, those who lost their limbs, those who were burnt, those who thankfully didn't die, we represented them in the court, and they were speaking under cross-examination and crying, weeping. We're still here.
Well, I mean, I do agree with Amanda to an extent in terms of planning and enforcement, but I'll go more on the enforcement side of things than the planning. The planning happens. We have Ramsar sites. We have, you know, buffer zones. Don't build. So we have planned.
Ramsar sites that we have willed to our children.
For in perpetuity, forest reserves, among other issues. So now, if we have all of this existing, buffer zones that are not supposed to be built on, parks, among other issues. Today, we are even struggling to have parks for our kids to play, right? That's a big problem. It's a national shame, and this is where it's really a big embarrassment. So if you look at it from this context, we have planned, but the enforcement of it. Where I live, right, Samson, it's disappointing. It's heartbreaking to the extent that, look, everyone is building along the road and confining to, someone comes to block the road and builds. Behind his house, the road continues. It was planned. We all are doing it.
When you said where I live,
yes,
I thought you were going to take us back to the UK where you were
No,
teaching.
in Ghana.
Okay.
No, I mean, UK, we have floods among other issues,
All right.
right? Where even in most developed countries, I was going to come to that, we still have floods despite their planning. They get it, they're planning right, but floods still do come. How about us that are still also getting our planning right, but enforcement is a problem which is resulting in this flood? I have a cousin who lives at Lakeside. He's seeking refuge in my house now, he and his family, because, look, he's been living there for the past 10 years. He's not had a flood before. So it means something fundamentally had gone wrong to ignite what had happened. What is it? It means we're building in places we're not supposed to, right? We may say, as a systemic problem, that, look, there's no funding to drain some of the, maybe the Odona and all of that, which has, but we've been receiving sanitation budgets among other issues. I don't want to go to the politics of it, of how a sanitation minister could have probably gone a step ahead to see how we could do all of this.
And that reminds me, if my producers can get us the plan,
Yes.
the design that we were shown of what was going to become of the Odo, you know, under Cecilia Dapa, and they put it up and they got the president excited. You know, let's get it out and let's ask a few questions.
Yeah, the plan ended up accumulating money in a room, isn't it?
Yeah. We are not sure about that.
Okay,
so.
well, somehow.
Yeah.
So you look at all of this and then you ask yourself, where is the enforcement of this? Right? They come and put land guards or whatsoever because they are macho men to force people to have these buildings. I mean, that building in my neighborhood, it annoys me each time I drive home and I see that, look, right behind the road continues. So what it means is that he has built in the middle of the road.
And nobody's doing anything.
Nobody's doing anything. It's a commercial property. He's renting out.
There's a local authority there.
Nobody's doing anything about it. So that's where the enforcement issue comes in. So until we're able to do this, so imagine the water running down, right, comes to meet this massive edifice with no drainage for passage. What's going to happen? Our houses are going to flood.
Which I understand is part of the reason for the flooding at the lakeside, because there's a certain portion of, at a certain point where there's some bridge of sorts, but people get there to build. Authorities go there, get them to demolish them. The next day, they go back.
So you have the town and country planning doing their work. You have all of the agencies probably doing their work in the planning side of things. Then it comes to enforcement. And this is where personal responsibility as citizens ought to also come in. Right? Why would someone come and do that? And we watch helplessly.
Yeah, but people are looking at government's ability to protect people. So the buck stops with
Yeah,
government.
but that's what I'm saying. It stops with, yeah, which is why committees have been put in place to say, okay, well, can you come out with a recommendation on what is happening as far as these floods are concerned? You have, a deputy chief of staff of operation who is involved in this. You have the minister for works and housing, very key to that. You have other security agencies like the, NADMO, among other issues. To actually, but can we begin to action this? If they come out with a report to say, okay, well, X agency is failing us, so what can we do to get them to do the right thing? You saw the president when he visited the Wager area at the Ramsack site, what was happening, right? You have, again, our land tenure system, I think, does not really also help because government is coming in to say this enforcement. Still landowners are also saying a different thing altogether, right? So who has power over such land and what should be done with it?
Government has power to ensure the planning.
Yes.
Regardless of the fact that the land belongs to you,
Yes.
Government has the power to determine the planning.
Which we agree, and which government has been doing. But then you have landowners who also think otherwise. So how do you, within this culture of local institutional authority and government, how do we marry the two in actually trying to solve a problem? So we really have a hydra-headed problem ahead of us, which affects all of us, which is why I'm thinking or saying that it's just not only the sole preserve of government to fix this. We individually have personal responsibilities, and the state institutions as well, and civil servants who have the object responsibility to ensure and enforce this. That's where I look at it more from the enforcement angle. Right, which
public-private partnerships perhaps would help.
Well, I mean, the point is, these private partnerships, you have all of these splash estates coming up, which the average Ghanaian can afford.
Okay.
All of that. So,
let me, do I have Alfred Tuyebo on the line? Yes. Good morning, Senior.
Good morning, Council.
Yes. So, well, you love Siani because the place... sometimes a bit quieter, but these days we understand, even on the streets, there it's not the same as we used to think about. But this is Accra. 5 people dead after just a little drizzle, really.
Yeah, Samson, it's rather unfortunate that over 50, 60 years after independence, every year, we have this challenge in Accra and other cities in Ghana. You mentioned Sunyane. Sunyane is a well-planned city, but I can assure you, nowadays when it rains, sometimes when you're driving around the streets, you're not careful, you may land yourself in a ditch. All because of, not because Sunyane alone, because of indiscipline indiscipline, indiscipline. So if you ask me, I would say every time of flooding has to do with indiscipline. Indiscipline on the part of the law enforcers, indiscipline on the part of those of us who build. When it comes to the laws of the land, I can tell you something. We have a lot of statutory provisions dealing with how we should build, where we should build, etc., etc. But the key challenge is about enforcement of these regulations and other statute laws or statutes. Now you look at a situation where you have the various assemblies which have been given the power to enact bylaws to regulate activities within the various municipalities and assemblies. Most of the assemblies in Accra, I can tell you, have various bylaws dealing with where and how we should build. But the question is, are we implementing or enforcing those bylaws? It's also a fact that if you go to the planning division of each of the assemblies, they plan. They plan the cities, they plan the towns, but those of us who also build, do we go by the rules and regulations that we are supposed to comply with when we are building? That's why I spoke about indiscipline on our part also. And people are now emboldened to even build on waterways. You confront them and they try to blackmail you by telling you that if you are in government, we are going to show you the exit when it comes to elections. People block the streets. They throw trash into our drains. They do all manner of things. When they are confronted, then they tend to blackmail the government in power. People live at places that they are not supposed to live. In slums, those areas are supposed to be green belts. They are supposed to be the collection point of water, etc., but they are living there. You try to evict them, then there's a blackmail that the government will show you the exit. I mean, these are some of the things that you should confront head on. And I decided to read around this issue about flooding and realized that in the 60s, we have flooding in Ghana. In the 70s, flooding. 80s, flooding. 90s, 2020s. I mean, it's been recurring each year.
Right.
And every year, we have discussions like we're having today.
Yeah.
But after discussions, we go to sleep.
You know, Kokubako used to be a regular on this show. We got to a point where he just got tired. Anytime he came up, he said, look, I'm tired. The things I said last year, if you can play them back.
He's right.
It's sad.
He's right. Because you spend all your time trying to diagnose the problem. After diagnosis, it's expected that there should be treatment. The treatment element is always missing.
Right. Okay, so we keep talking.
As I was ending, in terms of the planning processes, as Amanda rightly mentioned, that we need even private partnership among other issues. You know, historically, right, I don't speak, but Jolo, right, if you ask the meaning, the literal meaning of Jolo, it means a gigantic hole, right? How come? Look at the kind of development we're having. In any developed country, would you have the creme de la creme living few meters from an interchange in the way some designs are around within this Jolo area? I'm not mentioning names, for one but we see how all of these designs come about.
Okay.
Can we keep going like this?
Well, the people get in, they start, and then the authorities also just...
You know, people go and fill holes to build.
They just give up. Let's go to Professor Piaget Tua. Prof, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Hello, Prof. Do we have Prof. Piaget? Kindly unmute your mic, Prof.
Yes. Thank
you. Great. Good to have you. Good to have you. Are you speaking to us from home?
No.
Oh. You're supposed to be home because today is Nana Kia's special day, right?
That's right. That was yesterday, actually.
Oh, that was yesterday.
Yes.
Okay. So they take care of us all the time. Tell us, what did you do? What did you do?
Putting the professor on the spot.
I decided to travel out with her so that we can have some quiet time together.
I get it now.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So, all to show appreciation for her love and care, and to wish her that the new year will see more caring and more loving and more dedication on her side to me and to the rest of the family. So my appreciation to her for all the love and care.
Happy birthday to Nanekia Apiejetia. Okay, this blunt speaking professor, how you take care of him, we have no idea. Prof, tell us about the floods. And I don't know if you feel the way I feel. And I was just mentioning that, you know, there's a trial going on, the flood and fire, and many people lost their lives. Their dependents are suffering. How many years on? You know, there's nothing, no support for them really. The state just came and paid their medical bills at the start, and that was it. Some of them are completely disfigured, permanently disfigured, and here we are, back to the same situation. Flood, people are dying, 5 people gone.
Yes, it's a very sad spectacle, Samson, and it shows how leadership takes the ordinary person or the ordinary citizen for granted. And the fact that the issue continues to repeat itself. And we also know the places where people mostly who live in those places get affected. It tells you clearly that it affects the poor and those in other communities where infrastructure is not well preserved, or they are not put in place in a way as to ensure that people will be able to benefit from good infrastructure in those communities. And so at the end of the day, the people who die.
Just a second, I had called for a certain video, and that's what is being played. This is what we were told the Odo will turn into. As you walk by the Odo, if you drive past it or you are closer to it, you can tell that we are nothing close to this. It's smelly, and it's getting choked all the time, and it's part of a major part of the flooding in the city, isn't it? Yes, Prof, continue.
Yes, and so at the end of the day, what you realize is that there are some communities which get affected, and in those communities, clearly, these are communities that are not in plush areas of the country or the city that the rich and the famous live. And so at the end of the day, the solution is, the picture we get is that these people are taken for granted. And so the solution has been suggested, and I take Amanda's view on this, that it's about planning, it's about lack of planning and lack of enforcement, because the sanitation issue is a big problem in such communities. People don't know or don't have means to dispose of their garbage. So they keep this garbage until it rains, and then they deposit them in the gutters and other drainage systems in their communities. The drainage systems get choked, and the result is what we have. But I also want to say that it's not just about the planning and lack of enforcement, but it's also about people's attitudes. And so, until we get a mind change, we may continue to have this problem even if we get things in place. So it is important that we all look at ourselves and say that this is what I can do to ensure that this thing gets better. There's a role for all of us, but at the end of the day, it's the government.
Yes.
Those who are making money out of this, it's like a venture. Every year they make big money out of it because they present budgets, they get the money, and they don't do anything. And so we see this recycling of the problem going on. As Mr. Tuaebu said, I saw a photograph that was flying on the social media platforms. In the 1960s, there were flooding. And if up to now, today, we are unable to solve that problem, then we have a big problem on our hands. And so we should stop. In your Samson's take, we are talking about the issue of how we have allowed the government is taking us for granted, more or less, and people are not able to voice out their issues, and the problem continues to fester around. Poverty production, we are producing poverty, and this is the leadership producing this poverty, and people are suffering out of that. So every year, the people who die are not the rich and famous. These are people in poor communities. And so I don't know where to start from. It's like the elephant, whether to touch, which part of the body to touch, because it comes down also to the municipal assemblies. Bribery and corruption at the assemblies is a big problem. And people put up buildings without permits and so on. And when every year the government says we are going to demolish these structures, they don't end up demolishing them, or they demolish them discriminately. Last year, I recall, last 2 years, Mr. Henry Corte said we'll demolish the buildings on the Ramsar side, and then later on he turned around and said, no, we can't we can't put down some buildings for some ridiculous reasons, and so these buildings were kept. This year, President Mahama said we're going to demolish these buildings. They are still there. So what are we waiting for? The Greater Accra minister said they are going to demolish some buildings after some municipal assembly heads have been appointed. Why do we wait for municipal assemblies or MCs to be appointed before we demolish buildings when we already have the floods here? But the solution is not just about demolishing the buildings. It's about respecting even international laws. These Ramsar sites, we have signed international agreements. We have ratified them. We are supposed to protect these sites, but we are destroying them. So that is a problem we have. And so until we are able to ensure that we consider these people as persons that are also worthy of living as decent human beings.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Sites that they built, which is also a problem.
All right.
Thank you
very much, Prof. As we know, there is an anti-flood task force, the thing we are very good at, right? An anti-flood task force has been set up. The membership is 6 people. Stan Dogbe, Deputy Chief of Staff, Kenneth J, Minister, Water Resources, Ahmed Ibrahim, Minister, Local Governments, DCOP Razak, National Security Coordinator, Teddy Adi is Deputy Director General of NADMO, and Maretta Brew, who is the legal counsel to the President. They are supposed to do some work and ensure that this doesn't recur. I don't know if I can have faith that they can do anything for this not to recur. Even though they can, I don't know if they will. In 2022, we had the Ghana Hydrological Authority established, and I remember how we were made to believe that it will bring us the solution. And I'm just showing you on your screens the inauguration of that committee authority and the promises that were made, that we're going to present a master plan that will ensure that this does not recur. We'll take a quick break. We'll return to look at the Chief Justice in the Supreme Court, where she presides, but now suspended, seeking justice for herself.